What is up, everybody? Shawn Tubbs here with REVV Amps. Today we are checking out preset design within the G20. This is for people that already own a G20 and may not realize you can do this with it, but also for people that are considering purchasing a G20. You can program things from the front of this amplifier. So for instance, if I want like the wide switch on during my clean setting, or while I have my clean setting channel, and I switch to my crunch or overdrive channel, I can make it so that the wide setting shuts off. Now that's on the amp, but another thing you can do, and I can also say I want my software to be pre or post and store that on the amplifier. So as you can see right now, my clean, and we'll get into this in just a second, but my clean sound has the wide switch on and you're hearing the power section of the amp. But my drive sound or my overdrive channel, actually, you're not going to be hearing the power section of the amp because we're going to dive into the software. So there's a lot of things that can be done from the front of the amplifier, especially if you're using the foot switch. But also within the software, you can store presets to each function. So I may have one cabinet for this clean channel setting, but then I'll have a different cabinet for my normal crunch, and maybe even a different cabinet for my aggression modes, and so forth. So I'll kind of give you an idea. So like right now, what you just heard is the clean tone that I dialed up. So it's a really pretty clean tone. Now, what I did, because I'm taking advantage of the software now, you're not hearing this through a guitar cabinet, this is all two-note software. I decided to design my clean tone around a 1x12 cabinet. So you're hearing the REVV 1x12 cabinet with an ET90 and a speaker, and you're hearing the mic combination, Dynamic 57 or a Shure style microphone, and a Ribbon 121 or like a Royer 121 together. And it sounds really pretty, neck or bridge. It's nice and clean and open. Now, how I achieved that was, yes, I switched to a 1x12 cabinet that isn't as boomy and woofy. It's going to be a little bit brighter, but this 1x12 cab has a little bit of a mid-range presence too, which I dig, and we'll get into maybe a different cab in a second. And what I did is, because I can take advantage of the software, I went ahead and bumped 6K within the software about 7 dB, and even the 2K I bumped looks like 2 dB. Just to give it a little bit of sparkle up top. Looks like I did add a little bit of low end 120, and the mic balance right now a little bit more towards the 57, and you can see I have both mics like dead center on the cab. Nothing is off axis, and that's how I'm able to get I should say axis. Nothing, and that's how I'm able to get between like a bridge tone and or I should say a neck tone. God, what's wrong with me today? And a bridge tone. So it sounds really great. Now the reverb you're hearing is the Cathedral Reverb. So that preset that you're looking at right now, I actually stored it to call up when I'm on this clean channel. Now if you look, if I switch to the next crunch sound or the second channel of the amp, you can see the preset completely changes to no reverb, 4x12 cab, completely different deal, as well as not using the power section. And I'll show you how you do that. So we've heard the clean sound. Now these sounds that I've designed are not meant to necessarily go together. They're just different sounds. So we got the clean sound. Let's check out the second sound I've got going. Now the power section is now not being heard because I want to take advantage of the modeler that's within the software. So this is more of just kind of straight ahead crunch tone. And what I wanted to do was get more of that kind of vintagey, Marshall-y. martially kind of tone, not super high gain. I did switch to the REVV 4x12 cabinet. I'm still using the dynamic and ribbon combination of microphones, but you can see I've moved things a little bit off axis for the 57. It's a little off axis. The and the the EQ. You can see I bumped about 3 dB of 6K, but I'm using now the power section modeler. So if I shut that off, now we're not hearing the power section once again from the G20. We're hearing the EL34 model from the software. So now if I shut that off, still sounds okay, but it's missing that 34 bark. So that's that preset. That's how I created it. If I want a new preset for my next aggression mode, which would be the blue mode, I've stored that preset. So when I hit it, you'll see it change. And now we're in a totally different deal. Same cabinet, but I've added crypt reverb, but I've actually switched to, as you can see here, EL84 power tubes, because I wanted to create kind of a, not so much a different sound, it is a different sound, but there's a different feel there. So here's just the crunch. Now we'll go to the blue mode. Everything's going to switch. So now you're hearing a crypt reverb, a little bit more gain. But what you're not going to hear is how this feels. The EL84s are a little bit more squishy. And they've got a little bit different top end to them, as well as you're obviously hearing what the blue aggression mode does. But what I had in mind was that it has that kind of feel to it. And once again, I'm able to do that type of sound because I can take full advantage of the software. So just imagine with a foot switch, just the foot switch that comes with the amp, you can get so much tone just running direct, so many different tones. Now, the red aggression tone that I've come up with is completely different. I'm going to switch to more of a American style power section. It's going to be a little bit more of a modern type sound, so check it out. So now what we've got going is a Cathedral Reverb. You can obviously hear that. But I'm using the 6L6 power section, which sounds a little more modern. It's a little more bold, doesn't have quite as much mid. And I'm using the same mic combination and cabinet, but I've switched to a more custom EQ. And the reason I did that is because I wanted more of like a high 2K or 3K upper tone control, or I should say presence, that I could choose. So you can see right now that, and I'm sorry for the noise, I've got my computer way too close to everything, but you can see that I'm using 3,000 hertz or 3K. I shouldn't say 3,000, yeah, 3K, whatever, you guys know what I mean. And I'm boosting 2 dB there, not a ton, but just enough, because if I shut it off, just needs that sizzle up there. And then I'm boosting, actually no, I guess I left that flat. Everything else is flat, so the only thing I'm using is a little bit of the 3K top end. And then that 6L6 power section, if I shut that off, it's not quite as bold, the feel is different. Now that's going to be more subtle, but I love the way that sounds and feels. Now just for an example, I can shut that off, no power section. I can go ahead and engage the power section on the G20. Now that's 6V6 power, as opposed to 6L6. Just has a different feel and tonality. Now this is definitely more of a high gain thing, or I should say like a modern sound. I can definitely crank the gain. And even with that gain cranked, it's still going to sound good. If I go back, you can see everything switched now. If I go back to my first or no aggression mode on the second channel, crunch to the kind of squishier but gainier sound to my more modern high gain sound with reverb and all the fixins. And then if I go back to my clean, you can see the wide switch turns on, my power section's back on, everything is switched in the software, and I'm back to that clean tone. One thing to keep in mind that's really cool is in the preset level, it allows you to balance things out. So I can gun my clean level, or I can gun a solo level and store the preset that way. What I want to show you is really quick is what if we want a 2x12 for this preset as opposed to a 1x12? Because it'll sound a little bit less mid-rangey. Where did I put that thing? Oh, there it is. So if I switch to a 2x12, it's cleaner, maybe a little bit smoother, but it has a different mid presence. Maybe a little more low end there. Now with this one, this cab is quieter, so I can go ahead and bump the preset level to get that where I want it, and I'll go ahead and save that way so I don't forget. And then if I want the amp now to call that preset up as opposed to the 1x12, like right now I just called up the 1x12, so I'll go ahead and change that preset to the 2x12, and then I'll go ahead and hit the store button over here till it blinks. So now when I switch back, now it's my 2x12 instead of the 1x12. So that's how easy that is. You can just store the preset. So it's the same thing if you want to change something within the preset on anything, the channel switch, the aggression modes. You just change it on the software and then store it, and it'll remember it. So it just makes the amp crazy versatile when it's running direct like that. Now, like I said, I don't want to confuse anybody and make you think you can do that through the guitar cabinet. This is taking full advantage of the 2 Notes embedded software and reactive load. So yeah, just to recap, clean tone, 2x12 now. First crunch sound, no reverb, pretty vintage, and it's EL34 power section, no power section here. To the next aggression mode with a little bit of crypt reverb and squish and gain. To the red aggression mode, reverb, 4x12 cab, 6L6 power. So there you go. That is preset design on the G20. Now you can go crazy on this thing. So I've only really kind of scratched the surface for you guys, so you have an understanding of how it works. If you guys are using this amp this way, you guys that own one, leave in the comments below, how you guys are using the amp. And as always, I really appreciate you guys checking things out, and we'll see you next time.